Okay, first off, just so I don't get accused of anything, yes, the Spider-Man after credits stinger that was floating around on the web is a fake. So my opening gag was just riffing on that, not actually spoiling anything. Joss Whedon himself had said that there's nothing he could do to top the shawarma gag from the last time, so in order to save those of you with weak bladders, you can safely leave the theater after the mid-credits scene if you so desire. Got all that? Okay, let's talk about the movie. Sequels are hard, everyone knows this. I mean, how do you up the stakes from an alien invasion that would subjugate the entire Earth? And with all the characters running around, it's easy to believe. It'd be relatively simple to chalk up Age of Ultron as being too bloated to function at the same level as the first Avengers film. But that would be a waste of good chalk. Avengers 2 is probably just as good as the first one, but perhaps in slightly different ways. Things that worked really well in that first Avengers film don't do as well here, and this film does other parts better. The film hits the ground running, using the momentum of the first Avengers film to its advantage. That first one was all about the team coming together, and this one doesn't forget that. Not dwelling on catching people up, we see that the teams ramp things to the next level. Everyone has a moment of awesomeness and character building. No one gets Hawkeyed this time around, including Hawkeye. The returning actors all wear their roles like a pair of comfy shoes by this point. It's no longer the right people who just happen to come together at the right time, but a well-oiled machine. Which of course leads to our titular villain, Ultron, voiced by James Spader, who is the biggest game changer for this film. Let me be clear, I have liked every single film Marvel has released to this day, but save for Loki, the villains have been mostly functional at best. Did anyone really care about Ronan or Malekith's plans at all? No, of course not, but Whedon has now brought to life a second great villain with Ultron, and he is magnificent. In the comics, Ultron is probably my favorite Avengers villain of all time. He's mad both mentally and emotionally at his creator, and by extension all of us animated sacks of meat, because we are imperfect, and he knows that it implies he himself is imperfect. The film goes for a slightly different route, but Spader's Ultron is just as fascinating. Spader's voice just shouts menace and maliciousness, but there's a subtle or childlike aspect to him as well. Imagine giving a toddler all the information on the internet and a handgun. He might be intelligent, but he's still prone to tantrums. Ultimately, his problem is that he can't grasp the Avengers as a peacekeeping force. They are, in his eyes, just as violent as the forces Ultron was designed to stop. So that hypocrisy eats at him, and he seeks to wipe the team out. And that touches on the question of why the Avengers fight as a recurring theme. For Tony, who thinks in terms of machines, he wants to upgrade the world so he can tackle the next problem. Fighting is just a next step. For Steve, the fight is the one thing he has left. At the end of the day, though, there seems to be a common ground in that they all are wanting to help people, and that seems to be an almost pointed finger at the Distinguished Competition's last film. Talking about this movie much more than this is kind of difficult without drifting into some mildish spoilers, so you have been warned. I will say that this isn't quite Empire Strikes Back level, but it's definitely a darker tone than the first film, with a more desaturated color palette, and Ultron is not just attacking physically, but mentally as well. If the first film was all about putting the team together, this one tears them at the seams. New to the film is Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, twin byproducts of Hydra experimentation with their own reasons to hate Tony the Avengers. They mostly work, their powers are cool, and we get a couple good character moments for each, but they do spend the first half of the film just kind of standing around. Rounding out the cast is Paul Bettany as the Vision, and he ends up appearing so late into the film that he's only just barely explored, but he looks so cool. I can't wait for the next film to feature more of him because he's just so alien and weird looking, like he's right on the edge of the uncanny valley, which is appropriate for something that's neither completely organic nor machine. Not everything worked for me, however. Unlike the original, there are a lot of moving parts to the story, and it makes the pacing seem a bit weird. While I was able to follow the plot along okay, it seemed to dwell a bit too long on certain bits that probably could have been trimmed down, and other moments that I think needed more build-up or time seemed a bit cut short. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it does stand out. And finally, there's a budding romance between Bruce and Natasha, and I just can't quite get behind it. I'm not much of a fan of shipping. I tend to think of most Hollywood romances, unless it's an actual romance, tend to be a bit shallow, but I just didn't get any sexual chemistry off these two. I get that they would have a unique, friendly relationship, especially after the first film, but yeah, sorry, I don't buy the romance. Overall, Avengers Age of Ultron is about on par with the first one, which is to say, it's pretty freaking awesome. While the first one slowly built up the action, this one assumes the level of the Battle of New York as its starting point. the returning cast is as great or better. Ultron shines as one of Marvel's best new villains, and the other new characters all make an impression, even if they're not as developed as I'd like. The humor is just as sharp, and in fact, I probably need to see it again, as I know there were lines I missed thanks to the audience laughing or cheering. Hell, odds are you've already seen it, but if you're holding out, I highly recommend you assemble at the movie theater for Avengers: Age of Ultron. Hey folks, JD here. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you like the show, maybe click a like, maybe click a subscribe. I'm not gonna force you. I'm not an alien robot hybrid thing that's gonna kill peoples that you know about. If you like the Twitters, I'm on there. I've also got a Tumblr page. And you can always find me on geekvision.tv. And if you're not sick of me yet, why don't you click on my review of Kingsman: The Secret Service. And thanks for watching. Geek Vision.